that would bridges the gap between productivity and entertainment. This is an application from BBC. It's a history timeline. And this type of application is perfect for rich internet applications because it provides that view of a period of time and allows users to very easily choose along the timeline and make adjustments, as well as to be able to mouse over and what happened at a specific time. And they can also dive into further information. So if they're quite interested in this story, they can also, in some cases, the History Channel also has content linked to, so they could launch a window with a video, or they could read more about it in a transcript or that type of thing. So that's a really nice way to provide entertainment application. So that is the end of our examples. So we've just got a little bit of information now about benefits, and we're going to do some of a quick overview on technology, and then we'll be ready to start to take questions from you if you've got some lined up. When we look at rich internet applications, we've seen a lot of the benefits. You saw how it was very easy to present rich content. So really image heavy, very interactive content, or high fidelity content is the other one, like we saw with INM Library. The documents in that were all documents that were medical reports in a very specific format. Making those available online would have been quite difficult and caused a lot of users to have to download content and interact with it. So taking content that exactly fits a format today and pushing it out to users in a really lightweight and interactive way is a great benefit of rich internet applications. They also provide the nice sense of being able to deliver complex offerings and presenting large sets of data in a very visual way. So when you were looking at the application from Amazon, it didn't feel overwhelming, like, oh, there's 7,000 choices I have to make. Using sliders and using some of those narrow down visual techniques allows users to interact with a large volume of data without ever feeling like they're making a lot of choices and decisions, as well as taking a complex offering like a telecom package and breaking it out into steps and components and building that on the fly makes it really nice and accessible to users from a cognitive perspective. And the experience that we saw in any of these applications was very seamless and very interactive. So users were controlling their own destiny in many cases, which is really key. And they were provided with a bit of a guided experience within that framework. So rich internet applications provide that ability quite nicely and support that type of architecture. And everything we looked at today was really interactive. So it provided immediate feedback and it provides an immediate response so that users feel like they're engaged in the experience and really are interacting with the brand as they're going through the application. And one thing to note as well, we talked about the technical build of an RIA in the past. So that ability for them to make fewer trips to the server, to require users to submit pages on a regular basis, really creates a more responsive and reliable application as well. That's an overview of our benefits. I'm going to dive a little bit into technology, but it really is quite light. And certainly, if you do have deeper questions about technology, we can cover some of them in the Q&A. Or I can certainly involve some of my colleagues here that are way more technical than I am that can dive into questions you may have on choice of tools, etc. So if we look at the applications and the technologies used today to develop what we've just seen, one of the more popular ones on the market is Adobe Flex. And what Adobe Flex is it's an umbrella term for a group of technologies that support the deployment of RIAs using Flash Player. So many of you have seen Flash Player or have used Flash Player to deliver applications in the past. This is providing more of a structured development environment for applications that leverage Flash Player on the front end. And this is a technology that's now heading into its third generation. And there's a number of different components that are provided to developers in order to deliver this type of application through Flash Player. So one of the applications we saw today, Google Finance uses Flex on the front end, and a few others that we saw as well use that technology. So That's one way of delivering applications. The next one we'll look at very briefly again is Shockwave. This is something that if any of you have delivered offline content with Director in the past and you've looked to bring that content online, Shockwave was one of the technologies you may have used. It's also something that's being used even still today in lieu of Flash for really complex games, as well as any detailed animations or elaborate interactions. So it presents things quite nicely in 3D. So if you have a requirement to be able to push out 3D, Shockwave is one path that you could take for sure. And it adds the opportunity for, in the product catalog or product configurator, to nicely rotate and provide a 360-degree view. That can be done through a number of different technologies, but Shockwave certainly does present that quite nicely. Ajax and JavaScript is another technology that's used in the development process for rich internet applications. Ajax has been around for a while and is used a lot for applications where you need to do data validation. So if you're entering information and you may have gone to an airline website and started to type in the airport, and it gives you a whole list of the different options that are available, that's typically Ajax technology behind that. What Ajax stands for is asynchronous JavaScript with XML. And Ajax leverages an intermediate, almost like a translator that sits between the client and the server that handles the communication between the client and the server and allows for that interaction to take place in an immediate and asynchronous fashion. There's a number of different ways. Ajax itself is open source, so what's kind of interesting about this technology is that there's a number of different ways that it can be implemented. There's over 200 different toolkits and a number of different frameworks that are used for the development process with Ajax. Because it is a little bit more unstructured from that perspective, it does require a little bit more technical capabilities to develop with that. And the next technology we'll look at is a fairly recent one to the market. If I look back, I think it may have been this summer that this was really pushed out to the market, which is Microsoft Silverlight. This, you may have heard the previous code name for it, which was Windows Presentation Foundation. It's a cross-browser plugin for delivering Microsoft .NET media content. So it's kind of like Flash Player, but Microsoft's version of Flash Player. And they do have intentions to build that platform significantly. So it's one that you'll hear a little bit more about in years to come, and months to come actually, because it will be able to eventually be more of an RIA tool for taking .NET content and bringing it onto the web as it evolves. The fifth and of the technology development tools that we're going to look at is Java applets. And these are really small applications that are part of a larger application that are built in Java. And they kind of enhance the ability that HTML provides, but not significantly. If we look specifically at Java applets, they require the user to have the Java virtual machine, or you may have seen on your system there's a small little coffee cup that shows up in your system tray from time to time, but it requires a piece of software on the client side in order to work nicely, and it's one that changes fairly frequently and can be difficult to maintain and update. So Java applets have been used in some cases for rich internet applications, but they're not heavily used. Java FX is meant to take the concept of JavaScript and Java applets to the next level and to become more of an RIA tool. But that technology is really still quite young. We haven't heard a lot about JavaFX yet. It seems to me like it's going to be geared more toward the mobile market in terms of getting content that's out to mobile phones. So the final technology we just really should mention, although it's not itself a development tool for rich internet applications, it is a development tool that's used in conjunction with some of these other tools in order to deliver content, that rich internet application content, in an online-offline environment. So if an organization is looking at developing a rich internet application and wants to have a desktop component for that application, Adobe Air, or the Adobe Integrated Runtime, is one technology to keep in mind as well. You may have heard that called Apollo. That was talked about quite often in the media as Apollo. And it's still in beta, so that's why we're not really covering it significantly, but it does have the potential to become something to keep in mind as well. So that's a very brief overview of technology. As we move forward, the question is if you have a desire now after our session today to move forward with rich internet applications, just keep in mind that INM does provide some services in this area. So if you have any questions about selection of development tools or need any assistance in scoping or putting together your project, then certainly we can help you with that. Our contact information for both Nadine and I will be up in a moment here on the screen. So we are actually at the end of our presentation, and we're ready now to take some questions. So before we go to the phone questions, I just wanted to see if, Nadine, do we have any questions by type?